Oh, right. So another thing happened. I was working from home last week. And, I'm still learning about being a homeowner and everything. And we have heating in the floor. And then we have this cabinet filled with technical stuff that I just have no effing clue about whatsoever. Like, I'm an office worker. I've never been able to understand that stuff. And the seller said, when we took over, it's pretty
super
complicated.
simple.
No, they said it's pretty complicated in there, guys. And then I realized there wasn't enough pressure on the boiler. And I was like, okay, so what do? I Google, and you watch videos of, tens of different solutions, and you learn that you need to fill water on the thing. And how to do that? It took me like forever. And it's just to say, even after having purchased something, you will still discover complicated things after, a certain amount of time have passed. Didn't you also have this, or was it easier with your?
No, but all of this stuff my wife takes care of.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like, honestly, it's I think, and Cecilia, when you hear this, please don't give me a bad time afterwards. But all of these things, like those things at home, I'm like, I look at it as like, I don't, I've in Germany you say you have 2 thumbs on the left side or something like this.
Yeah. Thumbs for fingers.
And I rather don't touch it. So the last time when something kind of broke in the house, I was just, I was down with like a bathroom downstairs, and I was like, this sounds weird. And then I literally just texted my wife, hey, you need to come here and listen. Something sounds weird. And lo and behold, there was a big problem actually. Kind of, we had water kind of gushing through and kind of so not into the house, but then kind of also running out. So we basically kind of the meter was running for probably a week without kind of us realizing. It's like, something sounds weird here.
Well, at least as your wife, it's not like this magical thing like, where do all these clean clothes come from? I have no clue. At least so you can give her credit for it. I think that's, kudos to you.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
But anyway, the thing is, this is the segue I stitched together for today. Buying stuff, complex software.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about buying software.
Did I ruin it actually?
No, not at all. Not at all. You made it better.
Yeah.
You made it better.
Thank you.
The
correct answer, employee.
Yeah. Renewed.
Yeah.
No, so the funny thing is, we've kind of talked quite a bit about revenue operations obsessing too much over software.
Tools.
And today we're going to talk about software.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a reason for that, because we've been working on an ebook, and in that book it's very clear, you just need to have a handle on that stuff.
Yep.
It's going to need to happen anyway.
No, absolutely. And it's so obviously we're sometimes like, system admin and so forth, strategic. I mean, you need to have your stuff together also with the different tools that you have.
Yeah.
So you can't get around this, right? This is part of this is your core job function. You can't just like, you know what? Tony and Mikkel said, I don't need to care about this. No, it's obviously it doesn't work like this. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about buying software.
Yes.
Because in different times, I just say 1 or 2 years ago, people were like, oh, I'm done implementing this tool. What I'm going to implement next?
Yeah.
And let's just buy something else.
Yeah.
And so I think that has changed a little bit recently. I think maybe, by the way, we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here, kind of in terms of how sales and software and all of that is going. But we wanted to talk today about how you should be buying software in the right way instead.
Yes.
Let's jump into it.
So we have, let's say, 2 approaches we're going to walk through today. And I think one is going to be eerily simple to how a lot of folks are doing it.
Yes.
We're still going to cover it because there are some important steps in there. But there is a second approach coming. Wait for it. And that's going to be a bit different.
So the first one, this is the textbook one. And I think everyone kind of knows that that's how it should be done.
Yeah.
But no one is actually doing it like this.
Yeah.
But we still want to cover this, obviously, right? And the, if you imagine a pyramid and the top, triangle or something, you write strategy. Yeah. And then below that, you have people.
Yeah.
And the idea is, hey, you need to figure out what the strategy is, what you want to achieve, and then you need to figure out what the people are or who the people are that you need in order to fulfill the strategy. So far, it makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
And then once you have the people in place, then you can think like, okay, what are the processes I need to run for those people to work together in order to achieve the strategy, right? So for everything, kind of that makes sense. And then, and only then you would be like, okay, now that I have strategy, I have people, I have processes, now you need to think, what are the systems I need to help run those processes for the people then to go and execute strategy. Yeah. So on the base of the pyramid, you basically then have systems. And I think if you Google this and have different blog posts, it's going to be 4 P's: purpose, people, process, and platform.
Yeah.
That's the cool version.
Yeah.
I like, strategy, people, process, systems. And only then you should be like, okay, now that we are running a specific process, let's buy a tool to help us with that process, right? So what is a process? Well, it's very simply, let's just say you have a sales team and they're running a sales process. Then you would be like, hey, maybe we need a sales process management tool.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, oh, it's called a CRM.
Yeah.
And then let's buy that thing, right? So that's how that works. Funny side story, by the way. There's I talked to a bunch of different folks, but there's a company, 300+ million in ARR. They just recently went from spreadsheets to Salesforce, by the way.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And we're talking like 1,000 sellers and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's they've really milked that Google spreadsheet to the end.
Yeah.
And for them it was then, okay, now it's the time where we're gonna professionalize that part of the customer journey, the buyer journey, and so forth. Right. So it's that is a typical thing, and I think in their case, I would assume, you always have these when you're doing the plan, and then you put your inputs in, and then it doesn't fit. We need to. There's a gap, and what should we do about the gap? No one puts their implement CRM, and then we kind of hit the target, right? No. Because that's not going to work out. In their case, totally possible.
Yeah.
In their case, could be like a 20% lift for the whole productivity of the sales team. And it's like,
boop, that's going to be the ROI case you're going to read on the website.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it's so this is how it ideally should be, right? And then you have another thing which is a little bit more recent than the CM run is outbound. Yeah. Right. So in late 2000s, 2010s, the SDR function became a thing, and in the beginning, super messy, all those emails and put them in the CRM, and then those calls, and where do you make the calls from, and where they're tracked, and how do you know that how do you track all of that stuff, and how do you organize it, and how do you work on those cadences, and then there was a cadence tool. Yeah. And nowadays, what's that? Salesloft and Outreach. Yeah. And I think Gong has something now as well. And then who's the last one? Clary has Groove now, right? Those sales engagement platforms, right? They basically kind of solve that specific thing. And in our case, which is when I rolled out, well, I didn't. I was signing the check. Yeah. But then it's like at home, basically. Yeah. Someone else kind of fixed everything. But basically the thing was I think at the time we had maybe 100 SDRs. Yeah. In 3-4 different offices on 3 different continents. Everyone was running a little bit their own thing. And we were sitting there, the RevOps team, we were like, okay, cool, we're going to buy this thing now. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I mean, we're super well organized, right? So, and then we bought this, and then we want to implement it. And then it dawned on us that literally basically everyone of those 100 SDRs was kind of running a different playbook. Yeah. Like all of them. And the worst thing is that the 20 really successful ones, everyone else is going to, we have a new playbook now. Yeah. Here's the playbook. You need to do it. But, with the successful ones, you can't really do it like this. So that was extremely difficult to roll this thing out. And I think it took us 3 or 4 or 5 months or something like this. Yeah. Jesus. I'm gonna drink a beer with a guy who's been running this later tonight. So I'll ask him. But that is one of those things. We have like, hey, we have these. we have a growth strategy, and we want to do that through outbound. Let's hire all of those SDRs. Let's have the process in place in order for them to call and for the managers to manage that and so forth. And then, we need a tool for this.
Yeah.
Which then basically kind of that is the right way to do it. The wrong way, for example, to do it, and it's slightly different from this other piece that we're going to go into, is try and do it the other way around. Try and buy a tool to invent a process for people to do something that is not aligned with the strategy. That's the wrong way about it. And I think I've seen, I've done this myself, and I think it's pretty popular for people to still do this, right? So kind of keep this in mind. It's really, you want to go top down, and if you catch yourself going the other way around, then hey, there must be something. It sounds like an outbound call that went really well.
Yeah. Can't believe she signed it. Okay, so this is the textbook example. Pretty much how everyone should approach it. There's some strategy, people, process, and then you can look at the systems. But there's another way to go about software buying.
Yes.
Which we're going to get into now.
Yes. And so I think intuitively we all know this one, but I've never heard it really being spoken out loud like this. I recently kind of chatted with someone who basically kind of prompted that thought here to make this a topic. And basically he talked about it as software buying as a forcing function.
Yeah.
So basically, you could say, well, how's this different from the bottom up? You just buy a tool to then kind of have a process. Well, you're doing this with a little bit more purpose in mind, right? Kind of, it's almost so. What you want to achieve is you want to get some outside help. It could be a consultant, it could be a service, it could be a tool. To help you achieve change management inside the organization. Right? And that might be that, hey, no one is doing this process yet, but the desire is that process is being done, or the people don't actually know some of these things, but the desire would be that, people would actually know this in order to then fulfill the strategy, right? I think what's pretty clear to me is, if this is the path you choose, you probably have your systems to a degree be aligned with the strategy, but not the stuff in between. Right. So basically, kind of that's what they're then trying to kind of push change from the bottom up into strategy. Is a bit more difficult. But that's basically kind of how that could work, right? And if I take the examples from before, it could be that you have an outbound function that is all over the place. Maybe you're unsuccessful. Maybe you're not sure if you even hired the right people. All of that, all of those questions might be there. And the reason why you would then buy a software tool to help you solve that is to force a specific behavior into that SDR team. To then get consistent metrics and diagnostics out of this to see what's actually going on. For you to make a better choice on who are the right people, maybe. And, are we doing the right things? Are we running the right process, so to speak? To then support the strategy to begin with. Right. And it's it's kind of similar, but it's also not. In the first case, you're basically trying to optimize what's already there. So you're happy with what's going on, and you just bring in a tool to make everything a bit more sleek and fast and easy. And the other thing, you're using the tool, and tools. When you look at tools, it's really encoded best practice into a product.
There's some opinions in there usually.
Right. Think about it like this. It's not an Excel spreadsheet where you can do everything and anything. It's, hey, this is the best way to solve that problem that you're having there. And we know, because we talk to thousands of people and we spend, millions of hours on, pouring this into this product solution that's a perfect fit for this problem. If you feel otherwise, there's a solid chance that maybe you are the one making the mistake here. Right. So the software can actually help you to streamline the stuff. And and figure out, what the right things should be and could be.
Yeah.
And then you start using it as a forcing function.
I think one of the reasons why this is also interesting is it does something to the motivation also. When you think about, so everyone wants to be healthy, like period. I assume at least everyone wants to be healthy, and everyone maybe wants then time to work out in order to become healthy. But you know what? You might have a license for a fitness gym, whatever, and then not really use it. But if you paid, let's just say $2,000 a month for a trainer who will be there, expect you to come and run you through a program, you would probably show up. You would have high motivation because of the monetary side of it as well. And I think it's some of the same dynamics that happen, mentally speaking, when revenue operations and even the exec team says, okay, we know we want to enforce this process on streamlining outbound. And the fastest path for us, given where we are, is actually we invest in the tool to commit everyone to getting it done, because there's no failure in here. We are going to achieve it. And I think there is some motivational aspect to it there.
And I think when you think about this as a, revenue operations making a decision to buy something like this, right? I think RevOps coming in and saying there's a tool to help us with this specific process.
Yeah.
I think that's expected. I think this is 101 for revenue operations to make sure that the stuff that's running is being supported by the right tools.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, this is something that goes a little bit further into, I guess what we would call strategic revenue operations, right? So really spotting, well, what isn't working well, and can there be a tool out there that helps me to actually achieve that, right? And I think this is a much more difficult, purchasing process. Actually, kind of, you really need to build a internal team in order to agree to something like this, and first and foremost, what you need to make sure is that this is actually fully aligned with the strategy, albeit it might not fully be aligned with the existing processes and the existing people that you have in place, which makes this really difficult to actually pull off, right? Because of that, I believe doing something like this from a RevOps only perspective, I think it's much more difficult. But I think this can actually be one of those things where, yes, through buying some random tool, you can actually strategically align and help your organization to kind of get better at a specific thing.
Do you think it's more of when you use buying a piece of software as a forcing function, do you think this is more of a stick scenario versus the other textbook case is, it's not that it's a carrot, but there's a process to get people prepared and bought in, and yes, we've considered your reflections and blah. Whereas if you use it as a forcing function, you might end up saying, well, if you don't follow the process, then I'm sorry, we can't work together. Like, put on the limb here.
I think it's I think it's I'm not quite sure if I would delineate something like this. I think if you ultimately you buy whatever you're gonna buy, and it needs to be used for the value to be taken from the tool.
Yeah.
Right. And especially as a RevOps person, if you're too much thinking, hey, you can just force people to do it.
Oh yeah.
I think that will be kind of extremely difficult to then actually see usage coming out of this. And the best example is this whole please clean up the CRM and data quality and all of these things. I think in the rollout, it's super important for everyone that you as a RevOps person have a what's in it for me line for every single different group, right? And I think you can sometimes be obviously a bit more harsh. I think in the beginning, you're going to be soft on the project management and kind of getting this in. But over time, you're going to be more and more tight and clear and know this is what this is now. To take these folks on the journey and make sure that it lands in the right way. But ultimately, especially when you are championing something like this here, you will be more or less also on the hook for the usage of it, right? So you will need to make sure that all the different stakeholders and users are coming along with you in order to make this a successful not only purchasing, but also really kind of getting the value out of this, right?
Yeah.
But I think in some areas it will require a little bit more of a stick. So I agree with that. But I think in those cases, you probably will need to align very well with their boss, for example. Right?
Because it's also like you're not going to neglect all the best practices of rolling it out anyway. You're not just going to, suddenly create users and SDRs are going to go, well, I got an invite for this tool called whatever now.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah.
So you can't just forego that part of the process.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the other cool thing actually is when you look at these two approaches, it's also a good way for you to consider that, even next year, where are you going to force changes? Where are you going to reinforce a strategic element? And I would probably argue that you have a lot more speed on the forcing function when it comes to the actual implementation, because it's already decided you're going to force this through. So I think the speed you execute with, sometimes I feel like, and this is me talking from just the marketing perspective and the experience I have, when you're allocating time for discovery and, air quotes, being creative, that has a tendency to take a bit longer than it should, right? Because you have the time, you box in whatever time. Whereas if you just buy the software, then you are forced to start now, right?
Yeah.
So now we talked about basically the two ways to go about buying software, but there is also a point in time where you actually have to buy it,
Yeah.
So how do you go about that? I think there's a couple of differences here. It's, there's the conversation around, do you use it to reinforce and force, but also in the negotiation side and actually procuring the software.
Yeah. So I've been buying a bunch of tools, and sometimes I feel like it's bad sales karma. That's something. It's hitting roadblocks sometimes.
Yeah.
But so what we developed a framework to purchase software.
Yeah.
And what we did is, and we feel super smart about it, but it's super straight. It's super simple. But what we did is we took how we were selling software and tried to reverse engineer it, basically, right? Because we were sitting there with the sales reps, and the sales reps, we could clearly see what worked with them, and then they came to us, and so forth. Or just also seeing, something is ghosting, and now they want to have more discount and so forth. So we basically collected all of these different things that we saw worked with us in terms of getting a better deal, basically, and how the prospect achieved to get it.
Yeah.
We took all of that in and then reverse engineer it to then try and do it ourselves.
Yeah.
In order to get the best deal.
Yeah.
And obviously we needed to have a cool acronym, but I'm not sure if it's cool.
No.
But an acronym that helped us, right? And we looked at BANT, budget, authority, need, and timing. And then we had to reverse it for the purchasing process.
Yeah.
And we called it BUCT.
Yeah.
Budget, authority, C stands for competition.
Yeah.
And T stands for timing.
Yeah.
So the reason why the need needed to be replaced with something else is that as you go through the purchasing process, it will be increasingly clear that there is a need.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, otherwise you're not gonna keep talking.
And you at some point you can't escape the I need this.
Yeah.
So what else could you do about it? And I'll get to that in a second, right? But if you kind of go through those different steps, budget in the purchasing sense is there's no budget.
Yeah. I have zero. Yeah.
No, I have no money. You can navigate this through different ways, and every time someone says a number, you're surprised of how large that number is, and so forth.
Did you add a zero too much by accident?
I'm yeah. Is it per year or is it per month? I'm really worried. Everyone listening to this, they're gonna call us up now. Buy like this. So this is number one. Number two, authority, and this is really important. It's one of the biggest levers actually. So never go in with the highest authority. So when we even bought SalesLoft, we had our most junior member of the RevOps team call up SalesLoft.
Yeah.
And start the process there. And then every time we got in another layer, we basically asked for another discount.
Yeah.
Which is what people did to us all the time.
But it's also a new person coming saying, so what price is this? It's like, what is it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But it's also this, and you can basically kind of play this champion game then.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, I really want to have it, but my boss, and you need to help me with my boss, and so forth. Again, happened to us all the time.
Yeah.
And that's how then, it's also awkward when one person asks for a discount 5 times.
Yeah.
Right? But it's different when there's a new face showing up.
Yeah.
It's asking for a discount again.
Yeah.
Right? And then the most important thing, and this is so funny because it's just so true. The real economic buyer, the real decision maker, can never interface directly to the seller.
No.
Yeah. So basically, it's then it's in my case the CEO or the CRO or whatever. And you never allow the seller to speak to the actual economic buyer.
Yeah.
And ideally, if you're included in an email chain, you answer with like 3 words.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Yeah. Haven't looked at it, don't care.
Yeah. So this is how you need to play the authority ladder. Then we're moving on to C, so competition. And the thing is, you need to mention the competitors' words like all the time.
Yeah.
So for example, when we bought Salesforce, the first thing I said was, "Hey, sorry, I really like Salesforce, but my boss is a Microsoft Dynamics guy."
Yeah.
Dynamics. It's like all the time, right? And you can use it just to kind of kick off. You can use it during the proposal. You can use it, discussing pricing. You can use it to kind of get a discount. It's like use it everywhere around.
Yeah.
And it's really good to create this. What it does also is even, you add signature.
Yeah.
You literally add signature. In the sales process, you had 90% completed. But the thing is, the sales rep cannot feel it to be 90% at that point because it still might only be a coin flip at best because it still might be the other thing, right? So which then motivates the sales rep to kind of always go, one up on, I don't, at this point, I don't want to lose it to the competition, so let's be super aggressive, which then also helps them internally build the case and so forth. Right?
Yeah.
Dude, we're not going to sell any software.
No.
And then time. So for example, Salesforce, so everyone knows Salesforce's year end, fiscal year end is on 31st of January.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
So you still have time.
Yeah. And I did the reach out. So in this case, Salesforce, I did the reach out on the 1st of January.
Yeah.
And said, I need to buy it by the end of the month. So what did this do? Well, it created like, oh wow, this just popped into my forecast.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling for the rep. I didn't need to ask the rep when the quarter end was because I knew that already.
Yeah.
And you can dangle with like, I'm not sure if we can make this decision by then. It's for us. It probably is going to push out 2 more weeks, and you can kind of use it like this. But then also there's a negative side to this. As you have less and less time available, the number of times you can play ping pong basically reduces, right? If the timeline is coming up, and in Salesforce case, if the clock strikes midnight on the 31st, no, it's not going to be a last year's deal anymore. It's a New Year's deal, and all the discounts do disappear because they're different, right? And when you come up to the last week, then you maybe have 1 or 2 shots left or something like this, right?
Yeah.
Because in their case, you need to literally run it up and down the approval chain, and I do know that Salesforce was very upset with the Falcon account very upset with the Vulcan account. So that played out well. So it's bugged. Budget, authority, competitor, and timing.
Good thing we don't offer discounts here, huh?
No, that's right. That's right.
Okay, but I feel like so 2 ways to actually use software: either reinforce the strategy, force a change, and then a neat little nugget in the end on how to actually then go and buy the thing.
How to purchase.
How to buy the thing. And I felt like this was a great episode for us to cover because we have a ebook coming out, and it's about how to get strategic. And some of these elements you'll also find in the book. It's just a tiny part of it because we don't want to spend too much time on tools. There's a ton on how to get time, how to become strategic, learn from all the best folks.
We've interviewed a couple of really fantastic people for this book, actually. So let's see.
So check it out, roblox.com. You can find it there.
Wonderful. Mikkel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and bye-bye.
Bye.